Today I'm going to talk about how dementia patients can deceive others to the distress of their caregiver. This is a problem that most of us face, a disconcerting problem. Hi, I'm Bob DeMarco, the founder of the Alzheimer's Reading Room. I took care of my mom, Dottie, for 8.5 years, 3,112 days. So I know how caregivers feel. Here we go. One of the things that can be really hurtful to caregivers is the ability of their loved one with dementia to change behavior like a chameleon changes colors. The caregiver can vent over and over about how mean or how difficult their loved one is to deal with each day. Then all of a sudden, the loved one changes into a nice person when an outsider comes into the picture. I bet this has happened to you. What happens? In this situation, the caregiver ends up feeling violated. Violated because the patient makes the caregiver feel like a fool. In other words, when the patient turns all of a sudden very nice to an outsider, usually a family member who's visiting, a caller, a friend who comes over, or even a doctor, the caregiver feels like no one can really understand how they feel and what it is like to take care of someone living with dementia on a daily basis. We, the caregivers, often tell outsiders how difficult the person living with dementia can be, sometimes all day long. Then all of a sudden the person living with dementia starts to smile and act like everything is wonderful. They start acting like what you might call a normal person. By the way, this can go both ways. For example, the loved one can go to adult day services, also called adult daycare, and thrive and have a wonderful time. But as soon as you pick them up, they start to complain that they don't ever want to come back. This is a phenomena that most of us experience, and it can go in both directions. This, of course, is stressful and hurtful to the caregiver who is trying as hard as they can to bring the highest quality of life to their loved one living with dementia. That's possible. Why is it that an Alzheimer's patient can act like an Alzheimer's patient while with the caregiver, and then act so normal when an outsider is introduced into the communication dynamic? It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. At least it seemed that way to me, and I bet it seems that way to a lot of you. You might take a positive from a situation like this if you give it some thought. If the dementia patient can all of a sudden become a nice person, why not use this to your advantage? Here are 2 examples of how I did it. At nighttime, when my mother would start to get that dull, I'm not here look in her face, a really disconcerting look, and I think a lot of you have probably seen this I'm not here or I'm not there look. I immediately knew this meant trouble for both of us. Trouble for me, stress, anxiety, and sometimes heartbreak just to see it. In other words, our day was going to start going really bad. So what did I do? I used my sister Joanne, who I came to think of as a communication magician. I would get my sister to call my mom. There you go. Outsider, a person living outside her home. Joanne could talk to Dottie on the telephone and with minutes turn Dottie back into a nice person. Dottie would get all animated and get into the phone conversation with Joanne. It can only be described by one word. Dottie acted normal, even if she was acting crazy all day long to me. When Dottie would get off the telephone, she literally changed into a nice person. She changed into a better person. Think about this technique because you don't have to wait till nighttime to use it. So one of my suggestions when a person living with dementia becomes difficult to deal with is to get someone to call them on the telephone. I had a lot of people help me with this and it works like a charm. When Joanne was not available, I had to use a different strategy. Even though it was nighttime, I knew I had to get Dottie out of the house and completely change the dynamic. Change not only the physical space she was in, but also the mental place she was in. This was often accomplished by taking my mother for a ride in a car with a stop off at McDonald's for an ice cream cone and a coffee, something like that. This would completely change my mother's mood. Please note, this is important. You can change the mood of an Alzheimer's patient, and you have to develop techniques to do this. I wrote a couple articles that I think you might find interesting, and you can find the links to these articles in the show notes below. One is entitled, How to Use Ice Cream as a Memory Care Tool. This is one of the best ideas I ever had. I hope you'll take the time to read it. I also have a topics page. It's called Dementia Care, Always Meanness with Kindness. Many of you know about that technique and what I mean by that, but you might want to reread or go through some of the articles on the topics page. Try to remember that this deceiving change that dementia patients undergo is a normal symptom of Alzheimer's and related dementia. This, in fact, happens to most of us. So you're not in this situation all by yourself. I think it helps to understand that we're all groping with this, or at least most of us are. All I can say is dementia patients are very good at deceiving outsiders. You know this, I know this. So they can deceive family members, relatives, and friends or people that come over. This comes with the territory, sadly. I know it hurts and makes you feel sad inside, but I also learned that I can change this dynamic to my advantage. If it helps, try and remember this. An Alzheimer's patient might be able to deceive outsiders, but they can't deceive us. All caregivers know exactly how you feel. So take comfort in the simple fact that we understand, and when necessary, we have your back. Here are some comments that people have made after reading this article. Oh my gosh, this is so true. My mom would speak gibberish all day long, but the minute someone got on the phone with her, she enunciated and spoke in full sentences. That seemed to make sense to the person on the other end. Then the person would say, she sounds all right to me. Yikes. As a caregiver, I have to tell you, when somebody says to you after you're having a really difficult day, she sounds all right to me, that can really hurt you. Elaine, another reader, wrote, my mother could talk on the phone to other family and friends, and they all thought I was lying about her condition. It took them coming to visit to see exactly how bad the dementia was. If you're like me, you probably told someone, why don't you come here and visit for a week? If they do, I can tell you what they're going to say before you get anywhere near the end of the week. They're going to tell you, I don't know how you do it. Joyce wrote, oh my God, so glad I read this. I'm experiencing this with my husband. I am at wit's ends, and this has helped me understand. I will try some of what people have shared. Melissa wrote, wow, this is exactly what happens. Dion wrote, this is so true. Mike wrote, my wife was very good at making you think all was okay. We have over 35,000 active readers in the Alzheimer's Reading Room. We offer a free notification service that alerts you each time new content is available. I hope you will consider joining with us. You can subscribe in the alzheimersreadingroom.com. All we need is your email address, and everything is private. You can also read the print version of this podcast in the Alzheimer's Reading Room and get all the links that support this article. My name is Bob DeMarco. The Alzheimer's Reading Room operates for the benefit of society and specifically for the benefit of the Alzheimer's and dementia communities worldwide. We help caregivers and, as a natural extension, persons living with dementia to live a better life. You just listened to original content from the Alzheimer's Reading Room. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.